Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Pac-12 Chat Show live here on the Voice of College Football channel. I'm Tony here, as always, with Tim, Rick, and Chris, and we are ready to talk about the Pac-12 this week. How are you doing, guys?
Tremendous.
I'm good.
Are we ready for another week of Pac-12 football?
We are. I think it's kind of the calm before the storm week, but we'll get into it.
Should be a fun one. Well, first, we've got a little bit of news of the week, and that is that next week we have a hearing on the preliminary injunction and motion to dismiss in the fight between the Pac-2 and the Pac-12. So the University of Washington, on behalf of the other 10 and the Pac-12, will be duking it out a little bit in court with Washington State and Oregon State. It is possible that probably nothing of significance will happen. I continue to expect that we'll get to a mediated solution of some kind, but one of the big questions will be whether or not the other 9 schools have to be involved or not, because the Pac-12 is pointing out that they can't actually make the decisions that Washington State and Oregon State want. So keep your eyes peeled, gang. Over the next week, there may be some news, or we may have a little bit of a legal nothing burger. So we'll have to see. What do you guys think? Any predictions here?
I'll tell you what, I've been.
We'll see then. All right, let's get to some games. Let's get to what everybody wants. We got a few good games coming up this week. And first and foremost, our first game of the day. And guys, I think this might be an interesting one at Folsom Field, 2 p.m. Eastern. We've got Arizona and Colorado. Arizona's been resurgent. Colorado's been spiraling a little bit. Gang, what is going to happen when the Cats and the Buffs face off?
So that Sean Lewis firing looks really good, right? I think they had -4 yards per carry last week against Oregon State, and 5 points through 3 quarters. So, the change in offensive coordinator, that was such a weird move. And I don't know a lot, but I know a couple of people that know a little bit. And I was kind of thinking is that a Sean Lewis is already looking at his next job kind of thing. And we're going to get him out the door before and just move on and see what if there's anybody else on this staff that can do anything, including the guy that used to do it in the NFL. I don't really know that that's the case, which is kind of surprising to me. I don't know if it was our quarterback's getting sacked too often and I don't want him to get hurt kind of move, or what was going on there, or it's just a reaction to starting off the season so hot and then thinking you have to do something. But I thought, and a lot of people nationally thought, people smarter than I am, thought that Sean Lewis and what he was doing had a lot to do with why Colorado was winning games early on in the season. So that was surprising. I don't think Colorado is very good. I think Arizona, on the other hand, is pretty good and might be the best team in this conference, not named Oregon or Washington. Not really sure, but I think they have as good an argument to that as anyone else. And but it'll be interesting to see how they handle success, right? First time they've punched their ticket to a bowl game after the win against UCLA since I think 2017. So shout out to the Wildcats for making a bowl game and making it early. I think Arizona wins here. I think they do it pretty easily. And I think it sets up a really interesting game next week versus Utah at home, which I think is kind of a coin flip type game. And then they got a chance to finish the season 6-0 or whatever it's been, to finish 9-3. I think that's a pretty damn good season if they're able to accomplish that. But starting this week up in Boulder, I think the Wildcats take care of business.
Yeah, I'm not going to change my mind on what's been going on with Colorado. I said, they're thin, they're playing hurt, and they're coming up against a hot team. Fafita's getting better with every snap. Arizona in this one.
This would be so Pac-12 for Arizona with all the goodwill. 6-3, ranked number 23 in this week's AP Top 25 poll to go in and cough one up after already qualifying for the bowl. But this is not your typical Pac-12 season. And like Tim mentioned, it's Shedeur Sanders is beat up. That whole team is very thin. We knew that was going to happen. And so you make hasty decisions like maybe Dion did with replacing Coach Lewis. Didn't really work. But Arizona, yes, I agree with Chris. They could be the best team in the Pac-12, not named Oregon or Washington. Their 3 losses, 2 of them were on the road, one down at Mississippi State by a touchdown in overtime, another one by a touchdown up in Seattle against Washington. And then we all saw that triple overtime loss by 2 points to USC at the Coliseum. That's all 3 on the road, by the way. So Arizona's going to have too much. Fafita is a real quarterback, and they're gonna beat Colorado handily.
I agree with you guys. I really been impressed. I mean, I've been on the Jed Fish train for a couple of years, so I'm not surprised. But I've been impressed with how he's gotten the team together, and I think they're going to keep rolling. Colorado is kind of weak. I think losing Sean Lewis was a terrible decision on their part, but I guess we'll see. It kind of seemed a little bit like quarterback's dad was having a little tantrum, and we'll see if that was a good decision or not. But I think the Wildcats are going to roll. They've got a better defense I think people give them credit for, and I think they're going to stuff Colorado pretty good. But we'll see. It's Pac-12, so anything can happen. All right, guys, heading on up to Montlake. We've got what a lot of people think is the game of the week. Number 5, Washington. Number 18, Utah. Washington, after seeing absolutely no defense of any kind against USC, comes up against Utah's defense, but they get to do it at home. What is going to happen next to the lake?
I'm interested to see how well Utah is able to move the ball in this game, because I don't know if their offensive success in the last 3 of the last 4 weeks, besides the week they played Oregon, whether it's Utah kind of figuring something out, or if it's just the fact that they played Cal, Arizona State, and SC. And I think it's probably a little bit of both. But I do think that there are opportunities against Washington's defense to move the ball. I just don't obviously SC has a great offense, but they were able to do it last week, and Oregon moved the ball. But Washington, as we spoke about last week, has had some very big plays, like opportunistically on 4th downs or in the red zone, especially. So that being said, if Utah was at home, then maybe I'd dig deeper into that and think more about the possibility of some kind of upset or angle that I'm not really generally seeing on this game. But at home in Seattle, I've already tried to pick against this Washington team a couple times this year. Once a little facetiously and once seriously. But I'm not gonna make a habit of picking against Washington, especially at home. They get this done and move on.
Yeah, I agree with you. Short and simple. I do like what Utah. I agree what you're saying, Chris. I moved Utah up simply because we know their defense is, but their offense is just kind of gelling. They were hit blindsided by the fact, I'm being sarcastic, that they weren't going to have Rising this year, but they have filled in the pieces well. They are moving the ball on the ground. I think they can run the ball well. And Washington, if it does have one weakness, is going to be their rush defense. But at the end of the day, there's no way they're winning this game. Washington wins.
Yeah, this is Washington is eyeing the Pac-12 championship, a rematch, possibly with Oregon, and Utah's not going to slow them down. It'll be close for the first half, but this game is at Washington, and I don't see Seattle. I don't see Utah mustering enough offense. They will run the ball on Washington, but they're going to have to pass the ball to keep up with Penix. And Washington's defense will be game for whatever Utah is going to muster and kind of patch together to play against the Huskies for 60 minutes right there on the lake. So I see Washington winning by 2 scores, 2 touchdowns.
I think you guys are right. Washington is just too much for Utah. I mean, Utah has a good defense, but it's not a soul-crushing defense. And I think that what we saw from Washington is they just have so much offensive firepower that there's really no way that Utah can keep up with the current state of their offense. So I think it'll be a decent game, but I think Washington's going to come out with it. So bow down. Will be interesting to see what happens with the Dogs. All right. Heading to Berkeley, we've got a spiraling Washington State who everyone thought so highly of and has just had struggles since then against Cal, who continues plodding along. Yang, what do we think about the Bears and the Cougs?
So, yeah, Washington State needs to win, 2 between this game, Colorado, and Washington to be bowl eligible after starting the season 4-0. They need to win 2 of their last 3 just to make a bowl game.
Including the Wisconsin win.
Yeah, no, it's kind of crazy how far they dropped off so fast. After they got broken or something. On the flip side, Cal needs to win out versus Washington State, Stanford, and UCLA to make a bowl game. They're sitting at 3-6, and those are the 3 they have left to play. I think that's possible. After Washington State lost to Stanford last week, I have real bad I have a very big lack of confidence in Babel. I just don't see how I can pick them in this game after especially that because some of the teams they've lost to in their 5-game losing streak are pretty good teams. But that Stanford loss was real bad. So I just don't. Maybe they can move the ball again because this Cal defense is not anything special at all. But I just don't know how you can pick a team that's lost its last 5, including to Stanford, on the road. So give me Cal in a close, ugly one.
I'm also going with Cal. Simply, and really, this is a coin toss game. Clearly, I mean, if you look at the spread, it's obviously a very tight game. It's at home for the Bears, and the one thing the Bears do, I think Jay is leading the conference in rushing. And when you look at the defense, so you have otherworldly bad at USC for rush defense. Then you got Colorado. We've known about them all year, how bad their rush defense is. Right behind them is Washington State. I think Jay Knott's got a hell of a game, and the Bears win at home.
All I'm going to say is it's at Memorial Stadium. Washington State is spiraling, can't figure it out, and Cal is going to roll on you, Bears. Roll on, Cal.
I agree with you guys, but I'm going to add in one other little wrinkle that I think is pretty crazy and hits home. And Chris, this may hit home for you guys more than anybody. The Pac-12 was founded in Berkeley by the University of California in the 50s. This is the last Pac-12 game that will ever be played at Memorial Stadium. And that's kind of weird because they end the season at Stanford and at UCLA. Oh, so wow. This is kind of wild, guys. This is the last Pac-12 game at Memorial Stadium between Cal and Washington State. So I think Cal's a better team. 2, Washington State spiraling, but 3 for Pac-12 founder Dr. Seaborg and Dr. Kerr. I'm saying go Bears. They win. They send the Pac-12 out with a win in Strawberry Canyon.
It's universal, so I'd like to apologize to my father in advance.
That's true. The curse of Tony has just happened.
Oh, sorry. All right. A game that could have Pac-12 disaster written all over it. I mean, clearly Oregon State's going to roll Stanford, or are they? What do we think, guys?
Or are they? Do you know something I don't? Because my answer to that question is no. No. Oregon State takes care of business. Like, I don't even care if they're looking ahead to their next 2 of Washington at home and Oregon on the road, which will be awesome games to see if the Beavers can step up and take down one of the people at the top of the mountain. But yeah, no, this week they can sleepwalk through this one, and they might if they're looking ahead too much. But it won't matter because they're still going to win.
Yeah, Oregon State is going to win this game. I'm not really going to spend a heck of a lot of time talking about the whys. We know they have the better team. They have the better offense with that offensive line. If Martinez can hold on to the ball, he's had a little bit of fumbling issues, but they're literally going to roll Stanford. They're not going to have any defense for their offense, and it's going to be Oregon easily.
Yeah, Oregon State is they're just going to give a clinic to Stanford. I don't know if Stanford will have more than 15,000 fans at the stadium. But Oregon State.
It's at Oregon State.
Oh, is it?
It's sold out.
I'm sorry, Reeser. Okay, I saw Oregon State there on top. Okay, even more so. Stanford won't have more than 150 fans, the parents, at this game at Reeser, and they're going to take care of business, Oregon State, and they're going to put a number up on Stanford because it's the free spot on the bingo board, and Oregon State's outside of the top 10, and they need style points. So go Beavs.
Nothing would be more Pac-12 than Stanford finding a way to win this game. And Stanford always finds a way to knock a couple down that nobody expects during the season. That said, I think Jonathan Smith has this team ready. I don't think Stanford has the horses to score like they would need to on Oregon State in order to actually win this game. I think the crowd at Reeser will be wild, and I think Oregon State comes out with a win and keeps rolling, and Oregon State continues to be better than any team in the future Big 12 who won't take them. So go Beavs. You deserve that conference slot a whole lot more than all 16 of their schools that have it. All right. Another interesting one, guys. Does this have trap game all over it? We've got the Bruins headed to the Rose Bowl where they're going to bring in Arizona State. What do we think? Also, this is Arizona State's last trip to the Rose Bowl. Any chance of a win?
So, I don't know if you guys remember at the very, very, very beginning of the year when we were talking about teams, generally, I kind of said, UCLA is a ton of talent except for question marks around the O-line and what we get out of the quarterback position. And kind of what we get out of the quarterback position is the difference between being a 7-5 or 8-4 team and a 10-win team. And I think it's pretty clear now that the quarterback situation is a gigantic mess. So the UCLA is what it is. I think I think UCLA is is a good, not great team. It loses to the good teams that it plays, especially on the road, which is all 3 of our losses, and it beats the bad teams that it plays, and that's sort of been the the mantra of the last few years, even though we've had, 8 and 9 wins or whatnot. So yeah, I think we're kind of just like an average team with a lot of problems at quarterback. Apparently they're both practicing now. I haven't been able to follow the situation too closely, but like Garbers got knocked out, hurt last week. Then Dante Moore tried to play. I think he was like maybe concussed, maybe not. I don't know. For all I know, like Chase Griffin, our 4th or 5th string quarterback, might be the guy who has started games before. Might be playing in this game, but yeah, the quarterback situation's a mess. The good news for us or for UCLA fans is that I think the Arizona State quarterback situation is just as much of a mess and more riddled with injury than the UCLA quarterback situation is. And I think our defense is good enough in this game to shut them down. But I will say about the defense generally is, the 2 times we've played a team that has a balanced good offense in Arizona and Oregon State. Against Arizona and Oregon State. Those 2 games, that defense hasn't looked the same as it has when it's playing a team like Washington State that's a little bit more dimensional one way, or the Utah team that was one-dimensional one way. I still think it's like a top half of the conference defense or whatnot, and I still think the front 7 and the pass rush is elite. But overall, like nationally as a unit, I don't think it's like as elite as some people wanted to say it was like week 5 or 6, because we've seen some teams with balance be able to move the ball more than a lot of people thought they would be able to. So like Oregon State was the first example of it, and then Arizona was like the confirmation of it. But in this game, it's at home. Arizona State is reeling a little bit and has a ton of issues, and I think the Bruins pull it off.
Yeah, for all of that, plus the fact that you got a team in Arizona State that is 116th in yards per play going up against the defense at UCLA, which is giving up 4.4 yards per play, which is 8th in the country. So you have that going for you. The total is at 44. You guys better be taking that under all day long. It's both these offenses. Not only have they struggled, they're also banged up. And I do think that if you total it up, I think Arizona State's at 20 points a game. UCLA's at 22 points per game. That's still under. I don't know what math you're using. That looks like a good bet all day long with the quarterback issues at both schools. And I think I hear you that, but a lot of defenses, Chris, and are going to look bad against Arizona. A lot of them. And the big issue also is that you guys have to realize you're playing ASU, and these guys are going to be a mess. Even their defense is suspect. What they did against Washington, I guess, was a mirage. I mean, I was starting to buy in on it. They're like 40th in the country in yards per play. But even with the troubles they're having at UCLA will get enough points to win this game. And I don't think it's very close. And definitely take the under.
Yeah, we don't know what to make of ASU's defense. I think they just gave up double nickels to Utah. So that, I guess, giving up 15 to Washington was a fluke or mirage. Maybe they have one of the better defense of the bottom 8 teams, but UCLA has a good defense. As mentioned, both offenses are kind of a mess. The quarterback's situation's a mess. Now, the Rose Bowl could be considered a neutral field, especially since this time it's ASU's last game there, so they might travel just for the party and the tailgate. That's what ASU does. And so I could see a lot of ASU fans showing up for one last time in SoCal for this game, but it's not going to be enough. UCLA, with their defense, is going to make a one-dimensional team in ASU like half-dimensional, meaning they're going to cough up the ball a lot, turnovers, and UCLA will win this game easily.
Yeah, it's wild. Again, this is Arizona State's last game in Southern California. Their last game in LA, where they just opened up a campus. But it's going to be their last game there, and I think they're going to try real hard. I think they'll keep it maybe a little closer at the beginning than we would think, but I think UCLA will pull off in the end and win it solidly. Maybe not by a ton of points, but win it solidly. So we'll see. But I doubt there's gonna be a lot of people there. It'll definitely be one of those games we can probably have some attendance laughs at. So be ready for that. All right, gang. The night game. The last, or what we expect to be, I guess, because we don't think we have times yet for the USC-UCLA game, but what we expect to be the last Pac-12 After Dark game for USC as the Trojans head to Autzen Stadium to face the Oregon Ducks. Gang, USC just fired their defensive coordinator. Any chance they can get right in the land of the Ducks?
So my question for you guys is, when you have co-defensive coordinators, is that kind of like when you have two quarterbacks, like the saying of like, when you have two quarterbacks, you have none?
I think that's correct.
Touche. That's good, Serge. That is good, man.
So,
as long as one of them is not named Alex Grinch, I'm good.
Yeah, so SC has co-defensive coordinators. I don't know, maybe the kids play with their hair on fire a little bit. And I don't know, maybe things are just dumbed down beyond belief and they're not thinking and they fly to the ball all of a sudden and they tackle and a miracle happens. And Caleb has a Herculean effort, but I think the Ducks are too good. I think they're the best team in the conference, no disrespect to Washington. Washington is obviously the most deserving team in the conference right now. And I think we're pretty likely to see that rematch, but who knows what can happen in the last 2 weeks of chaos. It'll be certainly interesting to watch, but give me the Ducks in this one to be a little bit too much, and SC not being able. SC will score. SC will move the ball. The offense is too good to just be completely shut out in any one game. But give me the Ducks to pull this one out at home by about 10.
So it's been a while now that I've been telling everybody on this show that there's one team that's complete on both sides of the ball in this conference, best, most well-rounded team. As painful, and it truly is painful for me to say, but it is it is Oregon. They have the top scoring offense in the country. They do well running the ball with Bucky Irving. Just amazing. I mean, he was nothing new. Transferring over last year, we knew that he was a stud. But Jordan James is just right there as well. 1A and then maybe a 2 or even a 1B. They have no holes. They have some issues. We will put up points. We will get yards on this defense because our offense is that good. But I don't see any win here. I think that USC, I think Oregon wins and they barely cover.
What's the spread up to? Last time I heard it was 16.5.
That's 15 when I looked at it, but something like that, yeah.
What is it?
16-ish or 16.5, something like that.
All right. Hey, thanks to Exploring with Ben. He had me on his Oregon preview show last night with the guys. Good time. And I kind of went into the breakdown, and I've got Oregon beating USC at the beginning of this year. I had USC going 11-1, and this was the game I had USC losing. No different now with 1, 2, 3, 4 defensive coordinators. Doesn't matter. But you can check out the full breakdown. I'm going to have Mikey G on my channel, LBC Trojan, immediately following this show at 9:30. Get your favorite adult beverage, join the tailgate, and Mikey G and I will break it down.
All right, guys. USC should lose this game, but it's Pac-12 After Dark, and there would be nothing more Pac-12 After Dark than for USC with 2, maybe no defensive coordinators, but no Alex Grinch to find a way to win. I'm taking the Trojans for the shocking upset.
I
USC
love your moxie.
With no defensive coordinator over Oregon. Why? Is it because I love my Trojans? Well, maybe a little. But let me tell you the real reason why. Because this is Pac-12 After Dark. And nothing would nuke the Pac-12's chances of the playoffs and everything else more than for the best team in the Pac-12 to lose in Pac-12 After Dark to a team with absolutely no defense. So with that, fight on, boys. Puddles the duck, you're getting hunted.
That was so accurate, Tony. I thought about changing my pick for about 1/8 of a second, but then I realized reality set back in, and I went, I appreciate the courage and the fight on spirit, but this is the first time I've outright picked against USC this year, and it's not looking good.
Tony, are you trying to sell a screenplay? That was a hell of a write-up. That was a hell of a write-up, Tony. Are you trying to sell a Hollywood screenplay?
It's Pac-12 After Dark, and nothing would Oregon's the best team in the conference. If Oregon and Washington face each other again at a neutral field in Vegas, Oregon will wipe them off the floor. We saw that. Oregon is the best team.
I don't
know
about wipe them off the floor.
Nothing is more Pac-12 After Dark than the best team in the conference laying an egg. And that's what Ducks do. So, fight on, Trojans. Ducks.
I don't think you want to ruin the epic matchup between 7-win teams that'll happen next week if SC loses, though.
that might be on the Pac-12 network. Wouldn't that be the ultimate insult if USC and UCLA both lose this week and are so irrelevant that the last USC UCLA game would have to be on the Pac-12 network?
And the Pac-12 network goes bankrupt on Thursday before.
Yeah, exactly. We end up on Bally Sports West or something like that.
They have to kill one of the 7 channels, and the one that they'll kill is the LA channel. So it'll be available everywhere else except LA.
Probably true.
Yeah.
All right. Excuse me. We got power rankings, guys, and we got some changes in the power rankings this week. There were some changes in games. Changes from the bottom all the way to the top. So, starting here at the bottom of our power rankings, fairly universal. We got Colorado and ASU. Tim moves Colorado to the bottom. Everybody else drops Colorado down to number 11. And
ASU's
then
a typo.
What?
ASU's a typo.
It's a typo.
Go ahead.
And rounding out the bottom is WSU and Stanford. Guys, the Cardinal crawling up the standings. What do we think here?
I don't know if it's so much that Stanford rose to the occasion and the cream rises to the top so much as it is that some things were a little
Titanic sub.
Yeah, some things were a little heavier than we thought they were.
Yeah, I think I said it to you, Tony, earlier in that text I sent you. The bottom, literally the bottom third of this ranking, you're just throwing darts. Go that middle third, and you're really flipping coins. And then it's the 2 best teams are clear at the top. And beyond that, it's just a mess.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at what's next. We've got a little bit of unanimity here at 7 and 8, UCLA and Cal, and they're getting ready. They'll face off, of course, at the end of the year. Should be a good one. And then we've got some debate here on the Trojans. Chris and Rick have them down at 6th. Tim and I are summoning the potential here for a little bit of new love defensive coordinator. So we'll see what happens.
You have the
and
number 2
the Beavs.
I have USC at 6 because they have the number 2 offense and the number 120 defense. So if you average it, they're right in the middle. On a neutral field. I like it.
All right. Next up, Arizona. Guys, how about the Cats? Chris has got them 3rd. The rest of us have them 5th. Cats are having a good year.
They're on the
back
rise.
the A. They were down.
I said it earlier. It's just the offense is, and the defense is sneaky good, well, decent to good, right? Sorry, it's good compared to all the defenses except for OSU I have and UCLA. The difference between UCLA and why UCLA is where they are is just truly because of the quarterback and offensive line play. And then Arizona, they're good, but I don't think their offenses are as good as USC's and OSU. Arizona is the hot hand. That's why I'm going with them above the Beavs right now. But I see a lot in both of those teams. OSU is a little tougher. Arizona's a little more, a little flashier, the better athletes, I think. But they both, I would love to watch that. I would watch that game all day long, Arizona and Oregon State back and forth. That would be a really great matchup.
Be a good game.
Arizona learned a lot against USC. Arizona learned a lot against USC. They grew in that game. They had better line play on both sides of the ball, in my opinion, in that game. And they lost a close one. And they've gone on to win the rest of their games. They're on a roll, and they have a chance of going 9-3. So Jed Fish and the team has figured it out with Fafita as the quarterback, and he's really hit his stride, both the quarterback and Fish, and they're believing in themselves right now, and they're in the top 25. Who would have thought that?
I like it. Next up, we've got the Utes filling it out there. Guys, can you imagine if Utah had Cam Rising?
And Brent Keefe and all the other guys that aren't playing in this game? Yeah, they got banged up this year. It's hard for me, though, to feel too sorry because of how the season ended with USC last year and us without our quarterback basically on one leg. But, I mean, it's rough to see a great team and that defense. The defense has shown some cracks. It's not quite as super elite as I thought it was at the beginning of the year, but it's still right there with anybody in this conference with the best defense in the conference. It's just a shame that really good defense couldn't have a counterpoint, kind of like USC.
We know what that is like.
Yeah.
All right. And guys, we've got some changes at the top as well. There's been a little more movement towards the Ducks after Washington's lack of defense last week. What do we think? Rick, you've still got the Dogs number 1.
Yeah, they beat them head-to-head. So they're undefeated, and they're number 5. And yeah. It's a coin flip if it's a neutral field. Washington won by 3 on their home field. That's good for 3 points, so it's a toss-up.
I've got a sneaky suspicion that when these two do meet in the championship game, I think it's gonna be a little more one-sided than it was. They won't be missing a field goal at the end of the game. I think Oregon will, the way Washington's been playing the last 5 weeks, I think that Oregon will take care of them pretty good in the championship game.
All right. Well, hey, before we get going, we'll dig it. We'll dig into this in just a sec, real quick more. But before we get into that for a sec, we'd love to have you guys call into the show. So let me put I just put the link in the chat, and then we'll put it up here real quick as well. Guys, so as we wait for anybody to call in here in just a sec, we got some folks that'll call in. Going back here, any of these that you think are going to move somewhat in the next 2 weeks or so? Who do you think might have some room to move up or down?
I think this is what it is. I mean, like I said, you could shuffle so from about California down, you could maybe shuffle a little bit in there, and then from Utah to UCLA, you can see some movement in there. But I think we know who Utah, California, Utah, SC, Arizona, and Oregon State are. UCLA, again, with all the injuries, it's kind of hard to tell who they are, but we know who they are. But the top two are just, it's just such a gap between the top two and then the rest. And once you get past, UCLA, it's a huge drop off again, in my opinion.
In terms of who can move up, right? Like the Beavers are sitting there with 2 losses, and a chance to win out and still go to the title game, right? Like I'm pretty sure they control their own destiny, because they would be the one that hands Oregon its second loss and would have the head-to-head. Assuming I don't know. There's too many like scenarios to figure out, but in terms of like who could potentially, like, you know, if they pull off the upset, the Beavers are right there to make a move and be in the picture a little bit more than people are talking about them right now. If they're able to pull, especially if they're able to pull the first one off, you know, and shock some people. But the rest of them, yeah, like you said, Tim, maybe some minor movement 3 through 7. I kind of think 3 through 5 is a group, and I think SC is kind of a group unto itself. And then I think UCLA is a group, and then like you said, like 8 through 12. But for the most part, I think that's kind of how I group them all in my mind.
Yeah, 3 to 7, there's going to be movement, continued movement. A perfect example, Tim had Utah number 7 last week, and he's moved them up to 3. So there was something they did that jumped them all the way up. I don't see that much movement in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, going through Thanksgiving. But there's going to be movement there. Oregon State has a chance. I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off, but they do have a chance to get in that top 2 and get to Las Vegas. I just don't think they have enough offense to compete with either Oregon or Washington. I think those two are on a collision course, and rightfully so. Just hope that McMillan at Washington gets healthy. I hope both teams, if they do make the Pac-12 championship, are healthy. That should be an outstanding game.
And it's quite simple. The reason why Utah wasn't at like 5 or 6 is because their offense looked dead. And when you throw up points like that, and it wasn't fluky. They were moving, they were driving the ball, they were throwing the ball, they were running the ball, and it wasn't a fluky game. And while I'm saying Arizona State's offense is a mess, their defense going into that game, and still really is, it's a top 50 defense, yards per play. So for them to do that kind of damage to a defense like that, I think I had them artificially low at 7. But the reason why they were at 7 is because their performance. Performers said otherwise last week.
All right, well, we got some callers, guys. Let's get some folks in here to tell us what they think about the Pac-12 this week. Starting with our number 1 Ute fan, we got Larry Pilgrim. Larry, welcome to the show.
Hey, gentlemen, how are you?
What's up, Larry?
Great, Larry.
Good.
Tell me how the Utes are gonna shut down and stifle the dogs.
Gonna have to have some sneaky blitzes. Gonna need corners and safeties to rattle Penix. I mean, it's gonna be tough. They're a pretty good team.
It's doable though.
It's doable. Hopefully they've got a better game plan than they had against Oregon, which really I'm still upset about that game. Oregon runs pretty much the same offense they did last year, and we let them do what they do. So hopefully we can slow down Penix. We'll see what happens. I'm looking. They had that was a high-powered game they had last week, so kind of hoping they got a little gassed playing USC.
Well, yeah.
Well, the good news for you, Larry, is
when you run that long, it's hard not to. Sorry, Tim, go ahead.
That's right, Larry. What you got to realize is that Oregon is a more complete team than Washington. You saw how many points USC put up on their defense. And I think that whereas I don't think you have as much as dynamic, I like your run game, and if you get that run game going, they can be run on. USC didn't run for as many yards as they did, but they did put up a fair amount of yards against that defense. And I don't think that Barnes is going to, throw
Yeah.
for 350 or 4, but you guys can run for 200, 250. You can make it a game, but again, all that said, they've got a lot of offense, man. They're almost flawless, you know.
Yeah. Austin Jones looked great against Washington, or against he looked great.
So did Darwin Barlow.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys would have had who's your main running back? He's been out.
Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah, Lloyd. I mean, Austin Jones is good, but Lloyd that guy is really good. So we'll see. I'm interested to see if USC is going to play some press man. I think you guys have to have a chance against Oregon. I think if you guys can hang tight and play good press man, I think you've got a chance. So
I'm not sure if that's going to be the best plan, just simply because I'll say leave it this. I have a lot of respect for Tony Franklin and Gary Bryant Jr. And Tez Johnson. Everyone's talking about being Troy Franklin. Really, Franklin and Johnson are a bang up 1-2. The people aren't really talking about. Washington gets all of the praise because they should. McMillan's been out. We have Polk and Oduze. Those guys are just insane. But so is Troy Franklin is a stud. Gary Bryant can be a playmaker and explosive, and Tez Johnson is just having himself a year. He's a solid receiver, and I'm not sure. I haven't looked, but I'm pretty sure that statistically, Oregon might have surpassed Washington as far as just overall stats. And I'll tell you this: their defense is a hell of a lot better than Washington's defense. So you guys might see a different game than you saw when you played Oregon.
You there, Larry? Has the athletes. Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry, go ahead, Larry.
Go ahead, Larry. Yeah, I just think USC has the athletes to compete with Oregon. So it'll be interesting.
I called the win.
Yep. Oh, Tony, usually, I mean, I'm not trying to shoot you down here. Weird echo. Oh, all right. I'm going to let you go. My phone's having issues. So fight on, gentlemen. Go Utes.
Fight on, Larry.
Okay. Fight on, Larry. All right. Sorry about that, gang. We had a bit of a weird echo there. We sometimes get wacky technology adventures. All right. Next up, we got Mike Fort. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, West Coasters. How's it going?
What's up, Mike?
Hello. Good, Mike. What do you think about the Pac-12 this week?
I guess maybe it's an overreaction from one game, but I'm failing to see Utah being ranked that high.
Well,
again, it might be a function of not that they're lighting the world on fire, as the fact that the teams that are kind of right there with them haven't been playing their best ball lately.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, originally, 2 weeks ago, I thought that this game with Washington, even though, it's up in Seattle, I thought it might have been a close one. And I'm not really high on Washington because I think they're the clear silver medal of the Pac-12, but I don't see the Huskies struggling at all in this game. It almost seems like Utah's, I don't know if exposed is the right word, but I think they've lost a lot of their luster.
I think that Oregon is really, really good.
No argument there.
Yeah. So when
they are extremely good.
When that result happens, Utah wise, right? That's the game we're talking about. My brain's mush right now because I'm half sick. But yeah, when that game, I kind of almost brush it off as the same thing as if it would have been 25-0 or something. It's just a bad loss to a good team. And against the rest of the conference, they've done it all year. I guess my question is when you're saying they're too high, where would you have them? Because I have them at 5th.
I would figure
they beat SC at SC. They beat UCLA we could have stole that game, but they deserve to win it. I don't know how you'd have them any lower than 5.
I definitely would not put them over Arizona. I would not put them over Oregon State. Those are 2 locks for me. I could see 5th. I think if on a neutral field, if USC and Utah played again, I think it would be an interesting game. It'd be somewhat of a coin flip.
As all the struggles USC has had,
with USC's no lack of Alex Grinch.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I'm wondering if Grinch being gone is just going to be addition by subtraction.
I have like one. Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say I have one other like Utah angle for you, where it's like sitting. It still feels ridiculous to me to have them 5th, just because like this is what happens with Utah every year, except they're like in this position and then they end up winning the conference. so like in like the back of like a Pac-12 fan's mind, you can be like, yeah, Utah on the field, like they're, they don't look as good, especially because of like what they had especially early season going on offensively, and then they've looked better against some worse defensive teams. But like it's almost like a respect to Whittingham kind of thing, as why I would see you would have them as 3 or 4 to like maybe argue for the rest of the group, just because like we've seen this story with Whittingham and Utah so many times that like, they just keep winning games and you kind of respect it. And you kind of throw out the Oregon loss as like that's a really, really good team. And that's a really, really bad day. But on the whole, this is still a really good team, I think, is what I would partially argue also.
My only point about the Utes is that, again, at home, huge home field advantage. They've shown it. They own it. Obviously, Oregon's going to make a lot of teams look like they did. But what is your most impressive game that the Utes have had, on the road this year? And they really haven't. And again, I have all the respect in the world. I mean, I moved them all the way up. I have them there again, like I said, more of a function of the other teams below them. And this is a very flawed middle here. Everyone's missing pieces. You said why, Chris, you're ready for Utah to come back and win the conference. They had Cam Rising, and that's why they're winning the conference.
Obviously.
Yeah. I'm saying that's why they're a conference where they'd be in the situation, they would run it. It's because they had Cam Rising or Kincaid and or Keefe. So, I mean, they're very flawed on offense this year. But again, there's flaws at USC. There's flaws which we're pumping Arizona, on all of these teams below them. And I moved them up because, they're playing going into this week. They're playing the best ball. They do have, but as much as they're having issues on offense, they're kind of slowly getting better on offense. Will they get to a point where they're going to even compete with, the teams above them? I mean, they barely beat UCLA. They barely beat USC. They're good, but after those first 2 is a huge drop off, and you could literally 3 through 7, like we've been talking about for a while now. We could just mix them up and have an argument for any of these guys going anywhere from 3 to 7, just like you said last week.
3 through 6, 7 deserves to be where it is.
Well, with the quarterback situation now, yes. With the quarterback situation as bad as dire is, definitely.
And the other thing,
Mike?
The other thing kind of strikes me is that you guys seem really down on Arizona State for some reason.
Their offense is a mess and they're banged up. They've been banged up all year. Again, their defense is not as good as I thought it was. It's still much better than some of the teams that are above them, but their offense is just so poor that you can't bring them up.
I was waiting for this team to win games. Yeah, I was waiting for this team to win games all year. I picked them to beat Washington State, actually, and they did. I think I like Kenny Dillingham a lot. I don't know. We'll see. but they've like of teams, and I don't know where they are now with it because I haven't been following it. But if you talk about like injuries, right? Like people talk about Utah's injuries, like Arizona State throughout the season has just had a ton of dudes hurt, and they weren't expected to be good in the conference anyway. But some people thought they might have a chance to beat some teams. You know, like if they have like a great year, they're going to win 6 or 7. But they didn't end up being that team, and the team that they were got a ton of injuries. So yeah, they're good enough to like. I mean, they beat Washington State, but I don't know what to think of Washington State anymore.
Right.
Well,
and that was even after Washington State had been kind of wounded a little bit. I do think the defense, you know, like I think they play hard. I think their running back is really, really fun to watch. I think there's an argument to be made that if they play call it like 9, 10, and 11 on any given day, I think they can beat them. But I think more often than not, they lose to all those teams ahead of them right now.
ASU has one FBS win, and that's Washington State at home in Tempe. And we know the Washington schools don't do well in the desert. The other win is against Southern Utah by a field goal. So
yeah. Now, their non-con is a bit on the embarrassing side. I give you that one, but I mean,
that Oklahoma State loss doesn't look as bad as it did.
Yeah, that doesn't look bad. But didn't they get like blanked by Fresno State or something?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, the non-con.
Oh, they lost. Hold on though. There are caveats to that. They lost 3 quarterbacks in that game. I mean, you know that there is that.
Tim's right.
But they are not. They are not. They're a highly flawed team. Like literally, they're there at 10. That literally was a mistake. They should have been at 11. But you know, they're whatever. 10 through 12, really, maybe in their own little subcategory, because at least Cal and Stanford is showing, you know, maybe a very light and very faint pulse, but they have a pulse. The teams at the bottom really don't have any pulse. And I really thought that ASU and Washington State were going to be a lot better to make the whole conference a lot better. You know, we're saying, bam, top to bottom. But really, you get down towards that bottom half. The Pac-12 really came back to earth.
Imagine if I told you after week 3 that Washington State and Colorado were the 10th and 11th best teams in the conference.
Yeah. I'd have believed Colorado, to be honest.
There's on nosedives.
It's true.
I would have believed Colorado.
Hey, Mike, we got to move on. We
got
to move on in just a sec. But
okay, well,
go ahead, Tim, and then we'll move on.
Well, no, just shortly. Colorado pulled up some shocking upsets early on, but they are who we thought they were. I mean, and like we said a long time ago, they have some good skill players. They got some great front. You know, their 22 is pretty solid, but their backups weren't there. And as this team went on, just like USC found last year, when you had a really good team, your guys start getting dinged up front. You don't have any quality backup. Your team's going to nosedive. And in Colorado, even had less talent. So it was pretty inevitable what was going to happen to Colorado.
And sorry, Mike, we were actually going to we had another question for you. I was going to thank you, and I had another question for you before that. But Mike is gone. So thank you, Mike, for calling. Glad to have you as always. And all right, next up, we got Jackson Johnson. Jackson, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, gents. How's it going tonight?
Doing good.
Going great, Jackson. How you doing?
What are you thinking about the Pac-12 this week?
I'm looking forward to the USC-Oregon matchup and the Washington-Utah matchup. I mean, we could see some chaos for second place in the Pac-12. But my question for Chris is, do you think that Arizona State is a trap game like Arizona was last year? Or do you think UCLA's learned from their oopsie daisy last year?
I think that Arizona team last year had a lot of offense against a really bad defense, and we had a terrible game. I don't think that Arizona State is like a trap game, because I use that phrase as like a team, or the way I think of that when people say it is like it's like a team. It's a game where like a team is looking ahead, and you would say like, oh, are they looking ahead to SC? I don't think that this team one thinks it's good enough to look ahead. It does have a tendency to drop one game a year that it shouldn't, and maybe that's this game. Okay. But I don't see it, only because of what my understanding of like Arizona State's roster is situationally. I mean, upsets happen in college football all the time, right? Like it's totally possible. It's like randomly possible that like there's a world where Utah beats Washington. Like I don't think it's very likely, but it's probably like 15 or 20%. I'll check the math later, but like there's chances of upsets for sure. But I don't think we're looking ahead. If anything, I would be more concerned with like quitting or a coach that's like a dead man walking kind of situation. I don't think that that's what's happened here or what will happen. I think we'll win the game. I don't think we're at that point yet. But I think like a dead team or a quit team or a staff that knows it's on its way out is a more likely thing than like a look ahead or a trap game. But I don't think either of those are the case.
Oh, okay. And I was thinking about Washington State, California, or as I call Washington State, Syracuse of the Pac-12 because of their collapse. I've got a feeling Washington State
I'm not telling
has
John
to win
Wildhack you
this
said
game.
that.
What'd you say, Tony?
I said I'm not telling John Wildhack you said that.
All righty. Well, I was going to say Washington State, they got to win this game if they want to keep their bowl hopes alive. And
yeah, no, sorry, go ahead. I was just going to agree with you, but yeah, it's a huge game for both these teams if they want to make a bowl game. You're totally right.
And what's going on with Jake Dickert? I mean, he's not going to get in trouble for the abysmal middle second half part of the season, will he, or no?
Jackson, I think we talked about last week. The issue is which has been the case a lot of times, more recent than the past, when you had some great offenses at Washington and defenses at Washington State, athlete wise. But lately, they've been getting by on just out scheming, out playing everyone, and you had a great quarterback in Cam Ward. The new offensive coordinator, they probably did a lot of film on that guy. He came in, and they were lighting it up, and their defense was playing inspired. It's a lot easier when your offense is scoring a lot of points. We think, I think Chris was talking about, and I talked about it last week, that they maybe just caught up with the offense and the scheme. And you get enough film on Cam Ward in this offense, and then you start defending it, and that's when I think they started to struggle.
So yeah. Jackson, was your question that will he get in trouble? Like what? Like they would be on the hot seat or something, or
like if they go from 4-0 to 4-8, is there like a possibility of a hot seat for Mr. Dickard?
Not right now, and I think that they're way more. I think that they're probably like, if I'm the AD right now, I'm more concerned with keeping him and not having him go somewhere else and get hired by a bigger school with big money that knows what conference it's going to be in than I am concerned about firing him.
They're also really afraid right now of losing players. Apparently, they are afraid they are just going to get raided player wise. In addition to possibly their coach, like it's a really bad situation. I mean, remember, Washington State is about to lose about half of their revenue.
Yeah, that's gonna be ugly.
It's going to be real. I mean, so they President Scholl sent a notice out to the community about the fact that they are preparing for a massive transition in their athletic department, just because the money is not going to be there. So, I mean, we'll see a little bit, what goes on with however they settle it out in the Pac-12, but there's probably a 2-year ramp down period, and 2 years from now, they're going to be getting half the money they get now.
Yeah,
so it's going to be a challenge.
It's a pretty bad situation in Pullman.
So
But,
we'll see.
Yeah. But it is going to be fun seeing whether Oregon State can pull a 2017 Auburn. That'd be pretty cool.
You don't think Stanford can win this?
No. Oregon State's thinking about beating Stanford.
It was on the Pac-12 network, so I know probably no one else watched it besides me, but I would like to kindly remind people that I'll have a different coach and whatnot, but the Trees did give it a little bit to the Beavers last year, and Oregon State was actually, as part of that like wonderful season they had last year, they were very, very lucky to leave the farm with a win last year.
But
that being said, they're gonna roll this week. Yeah, off of like a catch over the guy's back and like a 3 missed tackles, like run to the end zone with like, I don't know, Connor remembers it better than I do.
Like no time to go or whatever. It was crazy.
Yeah, no, it was nuts. They were incredibly fortunate, but I do not think that they will need fortune this week. I agree with everybody else.
I remember I saw it out the corner of my eye on this TV because we were live. I think we were on the USC post game show, and I just saw it in the corner of my eye, and I looked over, and all of a sudden Oregon State had won. So it was craziness.
Oh man, I'm impressed with the job that Jonathan Smith has done this season at Oregon State.
Jonathan Smith's a great coach.
Yeah. You don't have to convince me about Jonathan Smith. I've been on that train for a few years.
Oh man, he's outstanding. He is outstanding as a head coach. I don't think Oregon State.
He caught my eye when they came into the Coliseum, stopped on our faces with a hobnail boot in that game where they was running the ball up and down the field. That was impressive. Even as bad as our funny, because I'd take that defense over what we have now. But even with that defense, just the way it wasn't that they were over. It was amazing. But it's just the way he was mixing up all those run plays. I mean, the guy is a genius. And I said, DJ, I was so happy for that dude when he decided to go to the Beavs and play with that offensive line, with their running backs, and with Jonathan Smith mentoring. It's just like the perfect spot that DJ could have gone to, and I'm really pleased.
They're a lot like Utah. Utah's defense is better than Oregon State, but then this year without Cam Rising, DJ is a plus. That's why I have them higher ranked than Utah. And Oregon State beat them in Corvallis 21-7. Again, both of those teams are very, very strong at home, not as strong on the road. Jonathan Smith is an excellent offensive-minded coach, kind of like Kyle Whittingham is a defensive blue-collar coach. Jonathan Smith is kind of the opposite on the offensive side of the ball. Both great programs.
Well, I don't think Jonathan Smith. I don't think Oregon State's gonna have to worry about Jonathan Smith going to Michigan State. I mean, shoot, if I got to choose between Oregon State and Michigan State, I'm staying my little tail at Corvallis.
Well, I understand Lance Leipold interviewed there yesterday, supposedly, according to rumors.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
I saw on Twitter today where he said that Kansas is going to be his final place. But, I mean, it's easy to say in the final weeks of the regular season, but I'm just kind of like, we'll see. Because everybody says the right thing in the regular season. But when it comes right down to it, it's not the thing they're really thinking at the moment. Not saying it's the case with Leipold, but I'm just saying we've seen it before with other coaches.
Well, Jackson, here's a great wrap up. Give us your prediction for what do you think is the most likely potential Pac-12 upset this week?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I'm leaning towards either USC, Oregon, or Washington, Utah, honestly.
See? I'm not the only believer, go boys.
Jackson, go hide your Go hide your credit cards, Jackson. Do not stay away from both of those games. At least don't take the money line. Maybe
Tim's
maybe
right.
maybe
Don't put
look.
money on it.
Yep.
Well, I'm not taking money line on USC.
Okay, good.
Oregon.
Okay, all right.
Now, I'm gonna save my money for another investment.
Can I tell you guys what worries me about this game? Dan Lanning may try to make a statement. Dan Lanning likes to make statements.
He's absolutely going to go for 2. If it comes down, what's your deal? And it's to go for 2 for 50. He's definitely going to do that stuff. He's going to pull all this stuff.
Dan Lanning is the new, and I love Dan Lanning for this. Yeah, Dan Lanning's answer, if they say, "Why'd you go for 2?" he would respond, "Because they wouldn't let me go for 3."
If they have a chance to break the record of points scored against USC, which is 62.
Wow.
They beat them in LA They beat us in LA a few years ago, 62-51. If there's a chance to break that in the fourth quarter, Dan Lanning will kick an onside kick. He will, because we don't have a special teams coach. It's going to happen.
That's true.
And if you have 0 special teams coach, it's like having 2 defensive coordinators. You got 0. 0 times 2 equals 0.
I actually hope he does. I really hope he does, because guess what? They're coming with us to the Big Ten. The discount Ducks are coming. We are dragging them. They're coming on our coattails, and they'll have to play us again when we have a proper DC, and we will smoke their asses. They pull that Bush League shit. That's for sure.
Oh, they're gonna pull it. They're gonna pull it. We're gonna win because it's after dark.
Tim's got receipts.
Matter of fact, someone get the, I hope that someone that watches the show that talks to Dan Lanning, because he's not watching the show. I want him to do that, because you know what? We aren't winning this game. We're going to lose. Please piss off USC. Please do some Bush League crap like that, so we could actually have a reason. So then it's your turn. We're going to put 100 on you. So I'd love to see it. That'd be great.
Well, you know what?
I like it, Tim. I like it.
Dan Lanning's already been running his mouth this week, and rightly so, because, he just watched USC get pounded. They couldn't stop the run. What do you think Dan Lanning's going to do with Bucky Irvin and Jordan James? He's going to run the ball until we say, I give. He knows we can't stop it. He called us playing 7-7 in LA. So, hey, if you can't shut him up, we can't shut him up. So,
Mikey, I love you. I love you, Mikey. But going for an onside kick when you're up a bunch of points is Bush League anywhere. Literally, if we did it, if USC did it, I would be embarrassed. I literally would be embarrassed if my school pulled that crap.
Tim, I respect
you gotta, when you're facing.
This is style points. This is the Pac-12 getting left out of the college football playoff. It's a potential chance for Oregon to make a statement, seeing that USC just lost to Washington. Oregon sitting at number 6. They need to get into the college football playoff. They have a huge win against Utah at Reeser. And now you have a chance of destroying the Trojans the last year in the Pac-12. You do what you got to do. It doesn't matter.
You take it.
This is a business. This is football. You leave your feelings off to the side. If you want to remember them 5 years down the road in the Big Ten, well, then that's USC's problem. But you know what? You can't.
I'll go right back at you and respectfully disagree with the fact that, number one, you shouldn't have to do Bush League crap. They're already going to win. I already said they're going to win. They're going to cover. That's at least 17 points. So, you beat USC by 17 points. You don't need to do onside kicks. That's just, if anything, that might turn voters off.
You know what? It's college football.
I doubt it.
Bush League is synonymous with college football. Look what's happening at Michigan with the Stallion. Look what's happening all across college football. Come on.
Look at those uniforms.
Me all the time inside the 10-yard line.
It's a fraternity. Pulling
their starting quarterbacks out. It's just Bush League. You can, Rick, you can sit here all day and talk to your blue in the face saying, hey, it's just business. Hey, you're right. You can say that, but the rest of the league's watching and USC will remember. I'm not going to
sit here and talk.
I'm just going to have to tell you that it's bad news to do that kind of stuff, especially to a team like USC, because they come back and bite you in the ass.
Can I add something as an impartial third party here?
All right, let's see what happens. Jackson, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on, gents. Fight on and
go ahead,
roll
Chris.
tide.
And then we'll move on.
Later, Jackson.
Yeah, no, I'd like to put on the record.
Roll tide, Jackson.
I think that Caleb Williams
Gents.
Later, Jackson. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that Caleb Williams is so amazing, and so good and so prolific that Oregon should probably just go onside every single kick to keep the ball out of his hands anytime they can.
It's worth a shot. All right, thank you, Jackson, and bring it up. We got our last call here, Will ND.
Guys,
Will,
I have a little
welcome to
fun
the channel.
comparison here. I want to see if you guys can figure it out.
Oh, what is that? Tell us.
Who do you guys think Dan Lanning is the defensive version of? And like, I don't know if you guys will, in terms of a head coach.
Spurrier?
Lane Kiffin, like a defensive Lane Kiffin, but without the sanctions.
I get what you I get what you're saying from like a from like a publicity standpoint, right? But I think Lane is about 1,000 times more hilarious.
All right.
Lane is funny as hell. Lane, I'm interested. Is Lane waiting for? Is Lane trying to position for the Bama job? Basically, is that the master plan? What's interesting because people talk about UCLA as like a like, oh, what if we got Lane Kiffin? But I think he doesn't like to recruit either, does he? I feel like they're getting everybody with money through the portal. And their high school classes haven't been that good. I mean, I don't know as much about the SEC as other people do. But I hear your point. I like Dan. And I don't care about like I want college football to have fun coaches like Lane Kiffin, like Dan Lanning, like Mike Leach was. I think it's a lot more fun to have people popping off in the media because I ultimately don't think it matters as much as people think. And I'd rather have that than like the Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, like so much the other way that you have a team that was #1 in Georgia winning the national championship is telling people with a straight face that like about how much people doubted them. And it's just like not true. So no, I like it. I think it makes the game more fun, and I like Dan in that respect.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I was thinking of that when Tim said like if they're gonna onside kick it, like the Chargers are gonna win it next year because didn't Lane go for 2 and then the Bruins beat him next year? So I could see that happening. I could see SC turning around if the defense gets to a good enough level next season against the Ducks. But we'll see.
It'll be. He reminds me a little bit of Spurrier though.
Okay.
Like old school, like Florida Spurrier. Because they play and they can back. You look at what they did to Oregon. That was a Spurrier type game and a Spurrier type move to just, Colorado. Just to stick it to them and be like, I'm over this.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. It'll be fun. Any predicted upsets this week, Will?
Am I that crazy for thinking the Utes have a chance?
They have a chance.
They got a good defense.
That's what I was saying. They got a good defense in Washington. Okay, it is that Husky, but in Washington's defense is like nothing to be scared of. So if they can run the ball,
they're pretty bad.
If they can run the ball and make enough plays, I think they have a chance.
I would give them about a 25% chance of winning this game.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, because it's not 0. They could very well win. But I think you're right. It's certainly better than even that Washington's going to get what they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, can we look at the other game first? A second.
Yeah.
Noah Fafita is going to pad his stats for sure.
We'll see. We'll see if Colorado is in positive rushing yards or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll be in positive rushing yards against Arizona, but I think Arizona's going to win.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What else we got? This is a
fun game. It's a fun little game. I'm happy it's on ESPN too, and not the Pac Network, because I might tune in.
I know the whole country can watch this one. It'll be good.
Yeah. See if the Cougs can get off the schneid, or Oscar can
The
get
last Pac-12 game at Memorial Stadium. How weird is that?
Oh man. One last chance for the Cougs. One last chance for the Cougs to get that those garlic fries.
I know, right? They're gonna lose the garlic fries. By the way, if you guys ever get a chance to go to a game at Cal or Stanford, the garlic fries, or actually the Giants too, the garlic fries are so good. You got to get them.
Yeah, I would definitely like to go to Strawberry Canyon if Notre Dame still has that tie-in with the ACC.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
You got to do it.
DJ, you should do well.
I think he's going to look good in that one.
Yeah.
I think they'll do whatever they want.
And last chance for those in Tempe to go to the Rose Bowl.
Or those Arizona State students in LA to go.
Right, I was going to say
their own school.
There's a lot of them that are from Orange County and Los Angeles.
Yes. They're going to come home, pick up some cash from mommy and daddy, and then go to the Rose Bowl.
Drop off their laundry.
Yep.
Do you guys think that Dilly's moving the Sun Devils in the right direction? I thought they would be a little better, but I know
I think they've been absolutely. I think they've been absolutely decimated. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to judge him negatively at all, and I think they've gotten better when he's calling plays, and I think they've actually gotten better over the course of the year. They just don't have any people.
Chris nailed it. His opposite play calling just changed the whole trajectory of their team for a split second, gave them hope. But if they can recruit, so the recruiting in Southern California demographically is changing. A lot of guys going to Vegas, a lot of guys going down to Arizona. They're in a hotbed right now for recruiting. You know, that area is big time for athletes. Look at the top athletes. You're seeing a lot of guys with Arizona, Will, you know that. And so if he can kind of lock it down as much as he can, stay home, go play in the Big 12, he's going to get some players. West Texas, Vegas area, Southern California. He'll still be in LA, right? Getting guys. He'll have the players. ASU has always had the ability to get players. And I think he's a great coach. He'll do well.
He was left with a bad hand with what Herm Edwards, Ray Anderson, Michael Crow left there. And then, if you remember, at the beginning of the year, like 4 days before the season started, they self-imposed a bowl ban. So, which you start off like a hand tied behind your back. That's kind of killed morale. They brought in a lot of transfers. They lost a lot of good players. So he's doing what he can. But you know, Tim hit it. They can recruit, and they're going to be going to the Big 12, which is an easier conference. They're going to find more success there.
I think look at what can be a huge advantage when they start playing Arizona and Brigham Young and Cincinnati and Central Florida.
Yeah. Arizona and Utah are going to do fantastic in the Big 12.
I know we're going to do I know this is like the college football, but that Arizona Duke basketball game on Friday is going to be awesome.
Go Blue Devils.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. There and USC's basketball team's looking good, so I'll take that too.
They look unbelievable.
Men and women.
Oh. It'll be interesting if all those really good basketball teams you guys just mentioned can get past the Elite Eight for the first time in 20 years or whatever it's been.
Chris, don't put pressure on us. Don't put pressure.
I'm not putting pressure on you. I'm putting pressure on the school out in the desert that
okay. All right.
that thinks it's a lot more than it has been because they won a championship like 2 years after UCLA's last one.
Well, and I'll tell you, I think Washington State and Oregon State would really appreciate if any of the Pac-12 teams could deliver a run into March.
You make it sound like you have 11
'Cause
times
they
as
would
many
like
as they
that
do.
money for the next 6 years.
Chris, you make it sound like you have 11 times as many national championships as they do.
Yeah, that would be a funny stat if that was true, right? We'd be like by far the better program, or if we had like gone to like 3 or 4 Final Fours since the last time they've been to one.
Clearly, you haven't talked to their fans. They'll tell you. They'll set you straight.
They'll set you straight. It's true.
Kevin Love
well,
was
thank
on
you,
that,
Will.
was on a Final Four team, right?
On one of them, along with a lot of other dudes. Yeah, those teams were real good. Unfortunately, they ran into when we went to 3 in a row. Real quick, we ran into Derrick Rose, youngest MVP in the NBA ever, one of the years, and then the other 2 years we lost to the Florida teams that had 5 NBA players on them, won the championship, and then somehow brought everyone back.
Right. Well, definitely excited for that. For the Washington, Utah, and that Cougs Golden Bears will be fun too. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to those games, guys. And I'll be back next week.
Thanks, Will.
All right.
Enjoy the bye, Will.
Go Irish.
Oh, I need this bye, man.
All right. Chris, any final thoughts here as we get ready to wrap up?
Sorry, I struggled with the mute button there. I was battling and I was losing. No, same old. I appreciate everyone hanging out and getting to talk football with people and hanging out with the chat. And I appreciate everyone that shows up and hangs out with us. Thanks, everyone, and go Bruins.
Go Bruins.
Likewise. Hey, thank you,
Rick?
everybody, for tuning in again to another fun Pac-12 show. Wouldn't be a show without everybody in the chat. Love you guys. Appreciate it. Good luck to your teams this weekend. And got a few more weeks with the Pac-12, so stick with us. Should be a crazy last 3 weeks in the conference before heading to the Pac-12 championship in Vegas. So good luck, everybody, and fight on. Have a good evening.
Tim?
Hi, everyone. Great show, guys. Check us out next week. We'll be here at the same time.
All right. Thank you, guys. Hey, only a couple more weeks of Pac-12 football, which is pretty crazy. So to fans, enjoy these last few weeks. It's going to be a bit of a wild ride. So like we said tonight, last Pac-12 game at Memorial Stadium, and we're going to be ticking them off like that all throughout the conference. So thank you guys for spending the evening with us. We'll see you soon. We'll see you this week on Saturday after the USC game for USC Post Game Live. But in the meantime, be sure to check out everything else on the channels. Give it a like and subscribe. We'll see you next week. Fight on, everybody.